Welcome to VFD Vibes, your place for all things related to variable frequency drives. If you're interested in how to make things turn or manufacturing technology in general, then this is the place for you. I'm your host, Greg Weichman, and today we're taking a look at something that doesn't just support our products, it empowers the people who use them. We're talking technical training. It's how teams level up, stay sharp, and get the most out of the technology in front of them. And at Yaskawa, training isn't just an afterthought, it's a strategic part of how we support our customers, our channel partners, and even our own employees. To walk us through how it all works and what makes it different, I'm joined by John Autero, Manager of Technical Training Services, who plays a key role in shaping Yaskawa's training programs. Whether you're just getting started or looking to deepen your expertise, this episode is packed with insights on how to build skills that last. Thanks for being here today, John. Can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Sure, Greg. Yeah, I started here at Yaskawa back in 1989, and I was actually an application engineer in drives for about 5 years or so. And one of the things I always loved to do was train customers. At that time, our company was very small, so we did a lot of different things: tech support, field service, applications, and training. And I always loved, anytime there was a request to do some training, I would always be the one to volunteer to do it. And after a few years, my boss kind of figured out, hey, this guy really likes to do training, and asked if I'd like to start technical training services. And so I did. And at first, it was just myself. That was where we started. And then we slowly grew the number of people we had in the department. We took on motion products, drive products, and solar products all together. But yeah, that's what I've been doing for the last 36 years.
Excellent. Sounds like you really built it from the ground up. And that's why I wanted you on the show, so you can give us a history of what are the challenges of technical training as well as what Yaskawa does different and how we try to excel at it. So to kick things off, can you give us a quick overview of what Yaskawa's Technical Training Services team does and who it serves?
Sure. Primarily, we serve our customers. Usually we're training either channel members or end customers or OEMs in some cases, but usually it'll be our sales channel members. We create things like e-learning modules. We take care of webinars that are performed. We may not actually be the ones to present the webinar, but we are the ones who produce and record it and then edit it into an e-learning module. We make in-person classes. We make live online classes. We teach those classes as well. We have a roadshow that we offer, which is a technical training class, not a promotional type thing, but actually technical training for single-day class in the field. So yeah, we do a variety of different things, training related. And we run the learning management system too, the Learn with Yaskawa learning management system, so we control that as well.
Yeah, we'll definitely dive deeper into that a little bit later in the episode. And I know you mentioned our primary goal is our customers, but those that have listened to the podcast know I'm newer with Yaskawa and I was not a core deep drives guy like a lot of people at this company. I actually remember one of the first things I did was take a couple training classes, everything from installation and startup to the applications. I had the industrial automation background, but it really helped deepen my knowledge of VFDs and their applications. So why does Yaskawa place such a strong emphasis on training, not just for employees, but for customers and our channel partners as well?
Training has always been a big part of Yaskawa. Right since when I started way back in the day, it was always important. And we always thought that every person at Yaskawa is a trainer, okay? If a salesman were to go with a customer and have lunch, you would see him talking to the customer about input diodes and main circuit and drawing on the back of a napkin, stuff like that. And anytime an engineer, or like an application engineer like myself back in the day, if we would go into the field, we would always take some time to work with a customer on how to set up the drive and how to do startups and how to adjust parameters. So we always thought that every person at Yaskawa is a training engineer, not just the people who had that on their business card. And that's still that way today. We always are working with customers to show them how to use our equipment because we always felt that you want to buy stuff that you understand, that you like, that you can use. And if we show you how to use it and we take away that question mark as far as how do I use that keypad or what are these parameters for? And if we explain them where they're easy to understand and people get the aha moment. And then what happens is they go, okay, I get it here. Oh, I can use this in this other application, and in this other application. and get familiar with our product. That's the main goal, and that's always been the main goal.
When you look at the main purpose of a drive for more energy efficiency, tighter process control, we want people comfortable using our technology to basically make equipment and manufacturing better, continuously push that envelope forward. I think it's funny when you talked about everyone being a training engineer, because I mentioned a lot of the people here are drives people through their core. And I feel like whenever you're a nerd or a geek about something, you can't help but talk about it, right? We all kind of have our things, whether you're a sports person, a car person, a fashion person. When you sit down, you want to talk it because it's your interest. And that's the people I see at Yaskawa when they sit down, to your point, drawing a diode bridge on a napkin to explain it to somebody. That's the kind of environment and people that we have here, which is really cool. You mentioned a little bit already some of the different ways that we can access training. Can you walk us through some of the key formats that you offer, like online, in person, and anything in between?
Sure. Yeah, we try to surround the customers with a lot of options as far as how can they get their training. Some people are more comfortable coming to an in-person class here at Yaskawa, which may take a few days. I mean, it could be a few days in the class. It could be a day to travel here, a day to travel home, some expense with the hotel or plane fare and stuff like that. So some people are comfortable with that. Some people are more comfortable with just watching an e-learning module. E-learning module could take you 15 minutes. And if that's all you need, just that little bit of training, that little bit of information, so you can do your job, then that's perfect for you. It's a variety of things. And during COVID, it was a terrible time. But one of the things that actually came out during COVID was everybody started to do virtual meetings. And so the virtual meetings for us sprang into virtual training classes. We came up with a training style that's called Live Online, where basically you have a training engineer, just like you would here in person at Waukegan, and we do the same class or produce the same class for you. We send you a demo through UPS or FedEx. We send you class materials, the whole shoot and match. So the only difference between attending in person in Waukegan and live online is just where you're sitting. I mean, you could be sitting in your kitchen. And it's funny because after COVID stopped, people still wanted to attend that way. And I talked to one guy and he said, man, this is great. He goes, I can attend a class from my kitchen. He goes, I can eat lunch with my wife. Afterwards, I get done with the class. I go to my daughter's softball game. He goes, so this is great. He goes, I didn't have to travel for 4 days to Waukegan to come to this class. And a lot of people, they do that. So
it makes sense to me because I personally find that for me to learn something, for it to really stick, I need to touch the product. I need to see it. I need to be hands-on. And you nailed it. In-person classes are what I prefer, but they have the highest barrier to entry. There's usually the most cost. There's the travel time associated, all your travel expenses. Online is kind of that perfect hybrid where you've got the hardware in front of you and you're not just watching a video, you're live with an instructor.
That's
so
right.
If you need to raise your hand and ask a question mid-lab or mid-presentation, you can do that. And that is a pretty cool offering. But if we go more into e-learning, do we have more types of self-paced courses as well?
Yeah, we sure do. We have e-learning modules that are standalone. Typically, like we mentioned, they're 10 or 15 minutes long. But we also have these things called self-guided training, where we've taken a number of e-learning modules, maybe 10 or 12 of them, and we've collected them together into a lesson. And each e-learning module is kind of like a chapter in a book where you watch the e-learning module, there's some little questions that are there for you to answer, and there's usually some type of exercises that we want you to do using a demo. It could be like DriveWorks Easy. And to do that, you'd actually dial in through the internet and connect to one of our demos here. So you could actually have the demo, have your little e-learning modules, and follow along this lesson. And it does take a little while to do 10 or 12 of these chapters. It takes about 6 or 8 hours to complete. So that's a very common way for folks to get training as well.
Cool. And another unique offering that Yaskawa has is the Traveling Training Roadshow. How does that work, and what kind of demand do we see for that?
Yes, the roadshow. Yeah, the roadshow is quite famous here at Yaskawa. Like we clarified before, the roadshow is not a promotional type program. It's not like
some companies call a roadshow as more of a marketing, like you bring a
Yeah.
trailer full of product and you can walk in and look at it, touch it. But this is actually a training roadshow.
That's right. Exactly. It's technical training. And primarily we target it as one day. And we have a number of roadshows that are focused on different products like G800 or GA500 or HV600, whichever it might be. And there's a small section at the beginning of each roadshow that covers like drives and motor basics, which is a good primer for most folks. And we normally have as much as we can handle about 18 students at the maximum, okay? Normally you'll see between like 12 and 14 as a normal size class. But yeah, we have a guy who is a training engineer. He's got lots of experience. He drives around the country in a big Ford van full of demos and books and materials and everything. And he does these one-day training classes. And usually what happens is the distributor will be the one to sponsor the roadshow. And they'll say, okay, we want to have a roadshow in Indianapolis. That's our region. And then they will invite their customers to the roadshow. And in some cases, we end up doing more than one roadshow in Indianapolis, for example, and end up doing 2 or 3 or 4. And they invite different customers to these shows. And the idea is, while it is technical training, it's also a chance for the distributors to hang out with their customers. So they come in, they do it in a hotel. Sometimes they do it at their office. Every once in a while, they do it someplace fun, too. One time, I remember them doing it at a Bass Pro Shop, and it was neat. But
if you pass the test, you get a free lure. Right?
That's right. Exactly. Exactly. So basically, they have a chance to sit down with them, go through a class at lunch, they eat together. They turn it into more than just training. They get a chance to really build a relationship with their customers and find out what's going on, what are their needs as far as drives and sales, and understand that a little bit better while the customer is obviously learning our products. So yeah, the roadshow is very, very popular, and it's got unfortunately a very big backlog too. So
Yep. And I'm not going to overpromise that every roadshow is going to have fun activities. Well, aside from the roadshow being fun in itself. Mm-hmm. If a customer were interested, would the best option then be to reach out to their local distributor?
That's correct. Exactly. Yep. Talk to the distributor, tell them that they're interested in a roadshow, and the distributor will then contact us through channels, and then we'll work on setting it up.
Mm-hmm. Great. Back to kind of the more traditional training, you mentioned that we have a learning management system, LMS. Mm-hmm. For those that aren't familiar, what is the LMS? How do people use it to access training?
Mm-hmm. Our learning management system is called Learn with Yaskawa, okay? And you can kind of think of Learn with Yaskawa as like a website for everything Yaskawa training. Learn with Yaskawa is a website that is basically everything that's Yaskawa training. So we have all of our e-learning modules are in Learn with Yaskawa. All of our in-person and live online training classes are in Learn with Yaskawa. You can register for them. You can go in and see what the descriptions are. You can actually, once you register and you come to the class, you take the tests that are in the class right in Learn with Yaskawa. E-learning modules are all there. You can go ahead and take a look at them and watch them there. There's a little quiz at the end you can take if you'd like to do that. But yeah, you can go in, get an account. You can cruise through the entire site, look at whatever you'd like, and watch any e-learning module. And e-learning modules don't have any charge to them. There's no cost for those. And as we mentioned, they're typically 10 to 15 minutes long, so it's not a huge amount of time that has to be spent. Training classes, our training class tuition fees are very, very, very reasonable. They're nothing like our competitors. They're way less than that. And the sales channel members, they don't pay anything for a tuition to attend an in-person or live online training class.
Well, and that's a nice benefit to our channel, and I'll extend it as a benefit to our customers because we want our channel to be the experts, an extension of Yaskawa ourselves. So we're always promoting that they get training. They love coming to get the training, and it helps us work as a unified resource for all of our customers.
And, Learn with Yaskawa, back to that, can be accessed at training.yaskawa.com, and it's there 24/7, 365. I mean, if you want to eat some Thanksgiving dinner and then go off and watch some e-learning modules on G800 drives, you could do that, So,
not that I find drives boring, but after Thanksgiving dinner, it might be hard to stay awake for that.
There you go.
I know you mentioned to me before that anyone who's attended typically one of our webinars or any type of event online probably has an LMS account and may not even be aware of it. Also, they're free to create. So there really is no harm in checking to see if you've already got one or going up and signing up for one for free.
That is a great point. You're right, because when the webinar invitations go out, they don't actually go out from training.yaskawa.com. They come from an email that invites the person to go and attend the webinar. And when you go through and you register for the webinar, you're right, you might not actually notice that you're in training.yaskawa.com. But yeah, if you go to Learn with Yaskawa, you try to log in. If you don't know your password, there's a forgot password button right there. You can click on it. It'll tell you what it is. And then you'll have a dashboard in there that'll show you any of the webinars you've attended. And like we'd mentioned, you're free to browse the catalog for any live classes, in-person classes, live online classes, or any of the e-learning modules that are there as well. Mm-hmm.
My next question was going to be, how does LMS help companies or individuals track their learning? And you just said it. I know when I log in, I can go to a completed courses section and not only see each course, but if I need the certificate, either for my employer or for CEU credits, things like that, all the links and everything are contained in one space.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It's all there on the dashboard right for you. Exactly.
We mentioned all the different ways that we provide training, but what is covered in the training? Are we talking simple drive basics, programming applications, or do we get into real specific content?
There's a variety of things that we do because the people who have our drives, they have different jobs. Yeah, we do have drive basics and motor basics type lessons and mainly those are done through e-learning. We ask folks to review those type of lessons before they attend an in-person class or a live online class. But yeah, we have things like, for example, we have a class called Installation Startup Workshop where there's really no lecture there. It's about 99.9% hands-on. We have an actual demo, if it's a bypass or a drive or whatever it might be, and then a demo that has a bunch of controls on it, switches, pots, things like that, but none of them are connected. None of them are wired up. And so it's your job to basically do an installation, take the drive out of a box, mount it, wire up the motor, the power, the I/O, and follow along in these little customer application stories that kind of tell you your customer wants to do this and this and this. And you actually figure it out and draw a little schematic, and then you figure out how you would wire it. You wire it and you test it, and you show your instructor. So for folks that are doing installation startups, that's the perfect class. If we have people that are doing more parameter adjustments, like application engineers and things like that, we have an application programming class. And in that class, we primarily have a demo that's already wired up because that's not the goal of that class. The goal of the class is to go through about 80% of the parameters that are in the drive, understand what they're for, where they're used, how to set them, what are the benefits of using those, and that pretty much covers that type of requirement as far as a student goes. And then we also have another class style that is very popular we call it a nickname of HOTS, and it's called Hands-On Troubleshooting class. And if you want to get elbow deep into a drive, come to a HOTS class, okay, because that's what we're doing. We do have some lecture, obviously. We go over some fault codes. We go over the schematic in fine detail so you know what every part in that drive is going to do when you walk out of there. But most of it is all hands-on, tearing apart equipment, tearing apart drives, putting them back together, doing checks without power, doing checks with power. Like I said, if you want to really get your hands dirty on a drive, this is the class to go to. So those are really our big facets of classes that we have. We also have e-learning modules that talk about specific things like network communication topics, BACnet and Ethernet IP and things like that. We also have the DWE's self-guided training. So those are pretty much the different facets or different types. And the reason is that the guy who's doing a startup might not actually be doing the application design. And the guy who's doing the application design might not be the same guy who's doing the repair, you know? So all these different people need a different class.
That makes sense. And the classes that are in person are kind of those big three, from install startup, application, troubleshooting, even down to repair. And then when you have the smaller topics like how to use a particular communications protocol or Drive Works Easy, for example, those are great ones to do via an e-learning module.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can always reach out for help if you need more beyond there.
Exactly.
But if I'm new to the LMS or newer to Yaskawa, when I log in and see this fantastic library of training, it can be really hard to know where to start. So do you offer any kind of a roadmap or training map for someone to kind of follow along to build that expertise?
Yep, we sure do. Actually, in our learning management system in Learn with Yaskawa, we call them learning paths. And with learning paths, we've assembled a collection of e-learning modules, in-person classes, live online classes. We've collected them all there so you can take a look at. And it's segregated by product. So if a customer has a G800 and they say, okay, I'd like to know all the training for G800, that learning path is what they should start with. It's even got things like motor and drive basics in there. It's got DWIs in there. It even has a few of the Netcom's e-learning modules like we mentioned, but also the big three, like you just said, the installation startup workshop, application programming, the HOTS class. They're all shown there for you. And they're not structured in a way where you must complete number 1 before you go to number 2, number 3, number 4. No, you can browse and do number 6 before you do number 2 if you want to. I mean, you're completely free to just browse and pick whichever one you want to work on first. And maybe you don't need to have drives and motor basics. Maybe you're already experienced with that, so you don't need that. So bypass that and go right for the G800 focused topics. But yeah, learning paths are the way to go. If you're just coming into Yaskawa's world of training and Yaskawa's world of drives, you'll be set up.
I suppose even if you're an expert and you may not need 75% of what's on the learning path, it may point out a couple modules or a couple little things that you didn't know about that might help you learn too. So,
great point. Yeah, that's a great point. You might not know that we had an e-learning module about BACnet or Ethernet IP or whatever it might be. That's a great point.
So what I'm saying is no matter your level of expertise or familiarity with Yaskawa, check them out.
Mm-hmm.
So let's dive in a little deeper. Tell us about the instructors. What kind of background or experience do they bring to the table?
You'll find that technical training services personnel are a little different than the traditional training department at a company. The guys who are in our department are all degreed engineers, mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, whatever it might be. They're all degreed engineers. They all have background with drives or motion or solar products, whichever facet they train. And the guys don't blend across these facets either. So the drive guys, they stay in drive training. They know the drives. They know it inside and out. They're not going to one day end up doing a solar product class. It doesn't work that way. So the solar product training engineers stay in their realm, motion stay in their realm, and the drive guys stay in their realm because they are experts in their area. They've written numerous articles for magazines on different topics. We have them all posted in the training hallway on the wall. So yeah, these guys, they know their stuff. And I'll be honest with you too, every once in a while somebody will ask a question that we just don't know. And what we do know is how to figure it out though. Where's the resources? We go talk to the application guys or the tech support guys, or even sometimes software engineers to find out what is the answer to this customer's question, and we'll bring it back to the class. But yeah, the guys who have been in technical training services, the guys we have now, all degreed engineers, they've been here quite a long time too. Some of them have been here more than 25 years. And they do a great job with presenting as well as developing classes. They're an expert in developing as well. Because we always said there was kind of like 3 areas of a training engineer they had to be very strong in. One, you got to be able to present properly, so you keep people's interest and you're interesting to listen to. You also must have a skill where you have to be able to develop classes and e-learning modules so you understand how people learn, how you break up and organize a training class. And then also, too, you have to be a good engineer yourself because what we're talking about is technical and we have to understand what we're talking about. The guys are not just a pretty face and being an actor. They're actually engineers that know their stuff and get down to the nitty-gritty with customer questions.
Yep, I'm not a pretty face either. That's why this is an audio-only podcast. This question, and maybe it relates back to the LMS section, but do our courses offer any type of certification or continuing education credits?
Yeah, they sure do. Actually, we offer 3 types of CEU credits. There's different categories. The most general category is what's called a PDH, a Professional Development Hour. And basically in that case, it's just a 1-to-1 ratio, 7 hours of training, 7 PDHs. And there's really not any strict regulation on that as far as who can and can't give that type of credit out. So that's kind of a generic one, but everybody kind of gives those out. We also provide continuing education units authorized by an organization called IACET, International Association of Continuing Education and Training. And basically what they do is they give us a kind of a guideline and rules that we have to follow so we can show that we are a high-quality training department, that we follow certain quality regulations, and they have their own guidelines and things that we must adhere to. And every 5 years, we have to renew our membership with them, and we have to turn in this enormous packet of information so they can peruse it and see what we've been doing. And then they have an on-site visit where they'll send an inspector to come and sit down with us and talk to us about what we've done, ask questions, see our equipment, see our training facilities. So, that's pretty detailed. So we provide CEU credits for people that attend a live online class or attend a in-person class, but the requirement is you must attend the full class, and then also, too, you must pass the certification test. So we've made it a little bit more strict than some of other folks who provide CEU credits. We say you got to actually pass the test. If you don't pass the test, sorry, but you don't get the CEU credits.
It's not just participation credit.
That's right. We take it pretty seriously. And then also, too, we also offer what's called NABCEP CEU credits, which is specifically for the solar industry. When we started doing those type classes a couple of years ago, we are approved to give out those type of CEU credits as well.
When we talk about our technical training services, I know this podcast is focused on drives, our drives division, but they actually do training for drives, motion, and our Selectria solar products. So that's why you'll hear him mention the different divisions, as well as how our trainers really gear in and specialize and focus on one of those particular divisions. So we can sit here and talk up our training all day, as you would expect. We're big fans of it. We do believe it's a great product, but what kind of feedback do you hear from people who go through Yaskawa training?
Good question. Yeah. Customer satisfaction, as you have been involved with this yourself, is key at Yaskawa. And it's not just, product quality is very important to us, obviously, but it's not just product quality that we're focusing on. It's complete quality of the customer's experience. If it's calling into tech support or calling to order a product or going to our website or going to the LMS, training.yaskawa.com, or getting a training class, no matter what it might be. And customer satisfaction survey is used every year and sent out to all the distributors, all the end users and OEMs, trying to have an idea of how Yaskawa is doing as a company. And my boss happens to run that program, so he was very influential with me to have surveys that we provide to students after they come to class. We have a third-party company who actually makes our surveys, collects the data, provides information to us, which we then rehash and relook at again to get into super detail as far as what are our customers saying, what do they want, what do they like, what don't they like, and we try to figure out ways to make those things they don't like better. So yeah, the surveys are key. We always ask, even when you do webinars, Greg, after we get done with the webinars, the survey goes out to everybody, say, hey, what did you think of the webinar? Did you like the topics? How about the ease of logging into it and even things like that? So we always provide a survey. And then also, too, in-person classes, and not live online, but in-person classes, we always provide lunch for the students, okay? And during that time, the students get a chance to talk with the training engineers offline, just about whatever. And then we also invite their application engineer that covers their region. We invite the inside salesperson that covers their company or their region, and they get a chance to talk with them firsthand. So build a relationship, definitely, but also understand hey, I've been doing, this isn't working. So we get feedback on training, but we also get feedback on other things as well.
Great. And I love the face-to-face meetings because sometimes you've been emailing with this person for years maybe, and at most you've seen their picture on LinkedIn. Maybe you've never even talked to them on the phone, and it's really fun to get to meet that person face-to-face in a casual environment over lunch, get to know them personally a little bit, and then like you said, I always loved going to manufacturer conferences because I had access to people that you normally didn't. So you could ask those burning questions. Sometimes I would create up that list. I'd have 2 or 3 or 4 things that tech support couldn't answer. I just couldn't figure out. And you get to really pick the brains of the experts. And to me, that's just part of making the experience great. If you've listened to some other podcast episodes, especially the one on our technical support, hopefully this is sounding a bit like a broken record. I know surveys can be annoying when you get them and feels like they take forever to complete, but Yaskawa as a company really does review the information. We use a lot of third-party companies to help make sure that we're not skewing the data and that we're getting accurate feedback and then putting actionable items behind it.
Yeah, that's so very true. And you know, the thing that's really good about what we do is that how many times have you answered a survey from like the car dealer or something like that, and you turn it in and nobody ever calls you or asks you about it or anything like that? You don't even know if people look at it. Does it just go into some giant database or something? But what we do is we look at every one of those things that comes back. And many times we'll have a hit list based on, okay, we need to contact this guy and explain to him about this, or we need to ask about this, or what happened here. And so we actually follow up, either phone call, email, sometimes both, and try to identify and help that person out. A lot of times we get things where people answer a question, you know, I've done training on your learning management system, Learn with Yaskawa, but I want more training, but I don't know what to do. Where do I go from here? And we get that all the time where we give them a call and we have right in front of us what they've done so far. And we get an understanding from them. What is your goals? Are you a troubleshooting guy? Are you a startup guy? Are you an application engineer? Whatever it might be. We talk to them and we try to direct them to different e-learning modules and classes they can take. So yeah, those type of surveys, like Greg said, are very important to us because it begins a dialogue about what people need.
And that's a great personal touch. I would venture to say that car dealerships don't read them because that experience never seems to improve.
Isn't that the case, huh?
Talk about staying current and new technologies. Right now I hear about AI in almost everything. Are there any new classes, technologies, or formats on the horizon for the training team?
You know, the AI part of it is very interesting. I've read a lot about AI and training. And one of the things that I thought was so novel was in regular like K through 12 training, kids going to school, they estimated that within the next 10 years, children would not have the same curriculum, even though they were in the same classroom, they would all have customized curriculums based on their learning needs. So nowadays, you've got a teacher and you've got curriculum. Okay, let's read chapter 26 and we're going to go over it tomorrow. We're going to get some questions and things like that. But that won't be the case anymore. Each learning path, basically, for each student will be slightly different based on their strengths and weaknesses. And I think that is going to blend over into product training as well. People are going to have almost like a jukebox full of training, which is like our LMS, which is a jukebox, where you can go to it and just pick out, I need to know this, I want to know that, and just get that learning that you need. We're still going to have hands-on troubleshooting because people still need to feel stuff and know how to take things apart, but a lot of it can be done online. And as far as AI, a lot of people are saying that AI can now make training classes, and I think that that's true to an extent. You know, when you use the AI that's out there now, basically it's like a really fancy Google search. So you say, you know, what is the color of the Atlantic Ocean? You type it in, and immediately AI goes out there and reads through all these different articles about what is the color of the Atlantic Ocean, and it gives you an answer, okay? Well, when we create product training, we can't just give a manual to AI and say, okay, here's the whole manual on the product. Regurgitate this into a training class. It doesn't work that way. Because when we set up a training class, we have a meeting with a variety of different people in the company, sales engineers, application engineers, product engineers, tech support guys. And what we do is we focus on what are the things that a student needs to know when they walk out of this type of class. So, for example, installation startup workshop class. When they walk out of that class, what do they need to know how to do? And just giving the AI a total manual for a product is not going to boil that down. Once we get that list of, we call it a final student performance, when we get that final student performance and understand what somebody needs to know when they walk out of that class, then we can use AI to help us extract that information from the manual and from different places to schematic drawings and things like that. So while AI is helpful, I don't think it's going to be, at least right out of the bat, the way it works now, I don't think it's going to be the end-all be-all of just give it a phone book style manual and regurgitate this thing and just spit out a perfect class. But it can help. I mean, right now in our learning management system, there's AI tools for graphics. So you type in what kind of graphic you want, it pops it in for you. That's very helpful. Also, there's AI as far as text. So if you write a paragraph of text and you want to sweeten it a little bit, you run it through these AI tools we have that are built into the LMS, and it helps you with your wording and things like that. There's also an AI tool for test questions. So, for example, it'll look at your class, it'll look at the e-learning module that you have in the system, it will watch it basically, and then it will make up some test questions for you. Of course, we go through and look at them to make sure, how many there are, what they are, and if those are valid things we want to ask, but it does help us in that aspect. So I can see where AI is going to be very useful. As the way it works right now, it does have certain spots, but yeah, I think that's going to be a big thing for the future.
Yeah, I could definitely see a great use case. We mentioned the learning paths. Maybe I'm looking at the one for GA 800 and it has 25 different courses between hands-on, e-learning, and everything. It'd be pretty cool if AI could ask you a couple of questions and immediately narrow it down. We already mentioned that if you have some experience, you might not need to take all 25. You might really be interested in 10 of them. To have AI narrow that down based on a couple questions and how you answer them. Another way is even within the LMS, I think you mentioned this might be coming. It's really just a more powerful search, but if you don't know that the class is called Introduction to BACnet, but using AI to describe what you're trying to learn, like I want to see all courses on communication protocols, and it's just more of a natural language search than what traditionally a lot of our search engines provide us.
Yeah, that's a great point. Actually, the vendor that we use for our learning management system, we are in constant communication with them, and they told us that is coming very soon, where you'll be able to go to the learning management system, training.yaskawa.com, and basically type in, I want to know how to repair a G800 drive. And it will provide you with the correct class, the correct e-learning modules, and everything that you need training-wise for that. So yeah, it's more conversational instead of just having to have the exact title of the class, know exactly what you're looking for. So yeah, that's on the horizon.
We mentioned that once you partake in a training event, you get a survey and you have a great way to provide feedback. But let's say I'm looking for something that doesn't exist and I want to provide feedback or a suggestion. What's the best way to do that?
You can do that a couple of ways. One is that when you receive your survey after a class you've attended, you can put that request right in that survey because, like I said before, we're going to be looking at that. And we'll take that point and either look for other customers who may have that same need, but also, too, is that you may have a request that's more of a custom class. And we can definitely do custom classes where we take materials that may have taken 3 or 4 days for a hands-on troubleshooting class and say you only want to know about fault codes. Okay, I'm really interested in fault codes. That's the thing I really want to focus on. You're right. We can take it and focus on a custom class just for that. But yeah, if you have any ideas as far as this would be a great e-learning module, or can you incorporate this in the class? Yeah, put it in your class survey after class, or just drop us an email at training@yaskawa.com. I monitor that. It comes right into my regular email inbox. So I'm looking at that every day, all the time. And we'd love to hear your ideas on what kind of thoughts you have on what we might be missing.
And I think we've said it enough times, but if you haven't heard it yet, the best place to start, training.yaskawa.com. So that's going to be a wrap for today. Thanks, John, for being here and sharing a lot of your expertise with us.
Well, it was a pleasure, Greg.
What a great behind-the-scenes look at how Yaskawa approaches technical training, not just as a service, but as a serious advantage for anyone working with drives. If you're ready to sharpen your skills, explore new technologies, or just learn how to get more out of your VFDs, head over to training.yaskawa.com to see what's available. Whether you're in the field, at a desk, or somewhere in between, there's a training path built for you. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please like or follow this podcast to stay informed when new episodes launch. And if we're doing a great job, please leave us a 5-star review. Thanks for joining us, and as always, we'll see you next time on VFD Vibes.